Well, good evening. This is Wednesday, and I'm really excited to have you on board. I'm so used to saying good evening to our South African audience, and I would like to welcome those of you who are in America. So, good morning to you. And of course, there are those others who are still sleeping and are going to see the recording a bit later on. And a special welcome to Heather, who's joining us from London, a very chilly London at -7 degrees, I believe, and Henny from South Africa, who's sweltering in the heat of 32 degrees, I think, or somewhere in that vicinity. So I trust that tonight's show is going to be somewhere between 32 degrees and 7 degrees, and it's going to warm you up, Heather, and maybe cool you down a bit, Henny, and all of those of you who are joining. If you share a post with us this evening, please include your name and where you're from. We'd love to engage in conversation with you and have a great discussion. Tonight, we're going to continue our journey on the topic beyond resolution. And you know something, last week we talked about this and we mentioned that action lies beyond resolution. And so many people are now in week 3 of the new year. And if you ask them what their resolution was, they actually have already forgotten. And I trust that that is not your story and that you're fully engaged, fully active, and excited about the 365 days that lie ahead of us. You might be saying 365 days. It's not 365 minus whatever the days that have passed. Well, I want to remind you that in Map for Life, we have the freedom to start a new year whenever we choose. And so right now, this minute can be a brand new year for you. And I'm going to start today where I left off yesterday. And the idea is to constantly improve and prepare yourself for your purpose. And so tonight we're going to continue that journey, and it begins with the words, beyond resolution lies leadership without limits. Now I use the word without limits, and I can already hear inside of you maybe a voice saying, but hang on, there have to be some kind of limits. Well, I think we so often over limit ourselves. We dream small, we don't dream big. We think inside the box, we don't live outside. We have all these kinds of reservations. What happens if something goes wrong? Well, I want to ask you this evening, what happens if your idea that you have is the best idea ever? What happens if the resolution that you have had is the greatest resolution that has ever been heard? What if your resolution is the one that they're going to speak about 1,000 years from now? If that's the kind of resolution that potentially is in the seed that you have sown for the next 365 days and beyond, should you not be limitless in your thinking? I think that leadership without limits is a tantalizing idea. And I trust that you will start reducing or removing the things that are holding you back. You see, when we take a resolution, there is also a need to maintain momentum. And the maintenance of momentum is going to be dependent on your motive. A lot of people do things for money today. I mean, they got up on Monday morning, not because they were excited of the new day, not because they were excited to go to the office. They got up on Monday morning because there were bills to pay and all other kinds of responsibilities that they believe can only be met through money. But money will not motivate you long term. Sure, you'll feel distress when you don't have it. But I want to encourage you to really reflect on your motive. What is driving you? What brings meaning to your life? What ignites the fire within? Because if you can find that, if you can connect with that, then momentum is going to be maintained. You're going to keep moving forward and you're going to get to a point where you begin to roll at speed. Not because there's a great big uphill that you've got to climb. I think of that song of Miley Cyrus, which talks about the climb. I'm thinking that when you connect with purpose, when you begin to use your gifts and talents, it's like downhill. And things begin to speed up and speed up. I mean, at the end of the day, exponential growth is what every plant experiences. It starts small, it germinates, it seems like it's taking forever, but man, that thing begins to grow, and suddenly it is a huge, big tree that is fruitful and multiplies. So what is your motive? What is your motive? Of course, you know the next letter, and what lies beyond resolution is newness, no more negativity. And one of the things that we love to engage in is negative talk. And I can hear things just in my country, in my surroundings, and I'm sure in your country and your surroundings, we so often engage in talk that is not going to lead to our vision. In fact, very often the words we speak are counterproductive, or not even counterproductive, they are destructive. And so I want to encourage you to begin to rid yourself of negative thoughts, negative speech, and to avoid allowing those thoughts to rest in your mind, because they can keep you awake at night and they can do all kinds of things and in fact keep you from stepping forward. The letter O talks about, for me, opportunity. And in our first session, part 1 of this talk, we talked about the fact that we have 365 days of opportunity that lie ahead. And you know, the kind of opportunity that we have is to overcome not the obstacles outside, not the external obstacles that everyone can recognize. If you look at me closely this evening, you may recognize that or notice that I wear spectacles, and you may say, oh, Glen has an obstacle. He can't see very clearly. You might look at me and notice that I was blessed. In South Africa, they say that you are blessed when you have no hair, or at least something that sounds that way. And of course, you know, so you may see all kinds of impediments when you look at my exterior. You may even hear me talk. Well, I don't think you're going to catch me talking about these things, but you may hear people talk about the obstacles that surround them and the things that are happening outside. But you know, they are internal obstacles that you and I imagine that are holding us back. And we need to consider, what are the things that are holding you back? What's keeping you from taking your next step? What are you waiting for? Whose permission do you need? Who are you blaming for your circumstance in life? I think we have today, if you have such a situation that you are blaming or something that's holding you back, it is an opportunity for you to overcome that thing and step into the promise that you have been given. And I think we all have a destiny that we can step towards in confidence, and we should do that. I'm sure you've heard that beyond resolution lies procrastination for the majority of the nation. But for you and I, we should not confuse procrastination with patience. And neither should we confuse patience with sitting and doing nothing. So often when we use the word patience, we sometimes reflect on people who are not taking any action. I want to try and connect patience, or not try. I want to connect patience with persistence. I want to connect patience with perseverance. I want to connect patience with the pursuit, because we live in a world where people demand instant coffee, instant results. If you're not being profitable within the first year or the second year, your business is deemed a failure. But when we look at what happens in nature around us, we see that the seed that becomes a tree demonstrates patience. In the face of adversity, in the face of winter, in the face of whatever's coming its way, it stands firm. It is patient to become what it was born to be. And so for you and I, when it comes to our purpose in life, we need to exercise patience, because it takes time for us to develop the character necessary to be entrusted with the purpose that we've been given. I think patience is a powerful attribute. I want to ask you a question. Is there such a thing, I wonder? What is your quit quotient? I used to, in fact, when I first put Map for Life together, I wrote inside there one of the objectives, and that objective was to help me. Well, I didn't say me, but it was for me. I wrote it for me. I said it was to help me to start and finish well. Because you see, I had an incredibly high quit quotient. I think it would be high. I quit so quickly. I would start something with great intensity, and it would last sometimes an hour, sometimes a day, sometimes a week. Maybe if I was lucky, I would stick with something for 3 months. My parents were so familiar with the fact that we quit easily that when I wanted to start martial arts at the age of 11, because all my classmates were doing it, they sat us down and said, listen, if we're going to pay all this money for you and your two brothers to start martial arts, then you better be committed. You got to finish. You got to get to the end. And we made a commitment. And we demonstrated that we had the ability to follow through and to stay there. And the rest of the classmates came and went. We remained because we made that commitment. So what is your quit quotient? Have you already quit on your ideas and dreams? Or are you the kind of person who's going to move beyond the resolution and follow through on the choice and the decision that you have made? You see, it requires some form of resolve. A resolution is, I liked Henny talking about the idea of a re-solution when we talked about this last week. Do you remember that, Henny? We talked about the re-solution, a new word that was introduced. I believe we've got to have resolve. I was talking to one of our mappers early this morning, somebody who had a neck injury. And Andrew was sharing his story about being on the brink of paralysis and going through a process of having an operation to try and prevent that from happening, and then having to go through the process of learning to walk again and gain his strength and go through a whole lot of things over a period of 4 years or longer. And I asked him, what was it that enabled you to follow through? And then he shared that when he was a young man, it is in his early 20s, he made a decision. He took a resolution that he would be resilient. And it doesn't matter what comes his way in life, he's going to bounce back. And I think it's important for you and I to decide before the difficult time as to how we're going to push through that difficult time or that tough time. In fact, to start looking at the benefits of going through adversity and to see the blessing that everyone talks about that lies beyond the apparent curse that we may be experiencing. So take a decision today. Have the resilience. Decide that you're going to be resilient. And I think that message could be revelational. I'm going to end this evening with this last message, and that is that beyond the resolution, you need to be able to see the invisible. You see, you need to have imagination. Not just the imagination that is like hallucination. You could have imagination that when you look through the lenses like I have, these lenses over here, when I look, man, I can see the United Kingdom. Not only can I see the United Kingdom, I can see the United Kingdom mapped completely, where every single person is engaged in their purpose and they implementing it in their life. When I look into the future, I can see every language mapped because these lenses are powerful. And you know, when you and I make a resolution, we've got to be able to see the invisible as if it is tangible, a real thing. We've got to see the unseen scene, and we need to bring the unseen scene onto the scene so that other people can see the scene that we saw. It's got to be clear sight. I think too many people today have imagination and they see things fleetingly. They don't fix on it. They don't gaze at it. They don't visualize it. They don't experience it. They don't engage in the emotion of experiencing the vision already achieved. And this is something that lies beyond resolution. Today is the first day of the next 365 days. And I'm excited about those 365 days. And I can feel that you are also excited about the 365 days that lie ahead. I want to invite you to subscribe on our YouTube channel, ring the notification bell so that you never miss a Wednesday session. And just for information, this year, we are going to grow from one session a week to many sessions a week, because our plan, our goal, our vision that we see clearly is that this session, this map show is going to be 24/7, 365 days a year, and that is going to be a reality. And I know that you too could very well be a part of that process. I'm looking forward to having a chat with the panel, Heather and Henny, after this short break. I look forward to seeing you there too. Is amazing, and I'm just looking forward to your guys' insights this evening. So I'm not going to be saying much. I'm just here, and I have a green background, and you might be wondering why does Glen have a green background? Well, I found that if I add the background afterwards, the video comes out a much clearer. And so to avoid pixelation for those people watching the recording, I'm doing this with a green screen behind me. So I trust that you will enjoy a better recording later. So Henny, I'm going to break protocol, and instead of giving the ladies the opportunity to speak first, because that kind of puts unnecessary pressure, I think I'm going to ask you to be a man today and actually step up and share your insights first before Heather steals your thunder.
Perfect. Happy. Good evening, everyone. Yeah, I think listening to what you said as well as um, the key thing for me that comes out of everything is really around habit. You've mentioned a few things, and the funny thing is, if I go through the alphabet letters, I can almost find a place for everything. The last one that you started with was just the S. Um, about the seeing everything. What is that? That's a vision board. So everything you're speaking about in this chat actually has a place where it lives. And the funny thing is, my year didn't start on the 31st of December. I think my year was on the 27th of December was my start of my 365 days. And I started putting habits in place. And one of the habits that I put in place was to make time to read books. And I'm busy reading a book from Robin Sharma, Who Will Cry When You Die. And one of the interesting things that I read this morning said, we first make our habits, and then our habits makes us. And I think for me, that's the key thing that I sort of between the lines picked up around what you said tonight as well. We spoke about negativity and all those wonderful things, but I think to make the difference, to be where you want to be, habits is a key place to start. If you get that sorted, you're 90% there. Then you just need to keep on going with it.
Henny, before you go, I just want to ask you to. You said something really important there. I want you just to emphasize it for me, because I was busy typing the name of the book, and you said something about you making habits, or habits make you. Can you just repeat how you said that?
We first make our habits, and then our habits makes us.
I think that's incredibly powerful. Thank you so much for sharing it, Heather.
Great talk. Good evening, and welcome to our chat tonight. Um, Resolution has almost become a bad word, because of all the connotation with it and how people start and never finish. And so sometimes when you say to people, "What's your New Year's resolutions?" "Oh, I don't make any." But what I like about the map and what we are all about is that we do address habits and we address goals. And in our group, when we talk about, "Oh, these are my goals," I say, "Wait a minute, that's a new habit you want to instill." And your habits actually lead you to your goals. So if you've got clarity between the two, then it's so much nicer. So your goal could be, "I need to release weight." So what habits do I need to instill to get there? And so you could say, "Well, I'm going to stop eating sugar. I'm going to drink more water. I'm going to," and those are the habits you're going to start instilling, which, as Andy says, are going to make you in the end reach your goal. So, yeah, it's all about beyond resolution, as you say.
I love this show. I love this show. I'm learning tonight, and that's what it's about. I just, Heather, you're teaching me, and I'm saying we need to teach more people. We need to share this message, and I just love the perspective that you're sharing. Henny, what do you say about Heather's comments there?
I think I agree with what you're saying as well. As I mean, if I think about it, the way that it's starting to make sense to me right now is to say habits are actually the building blocks of success, or putting it differently, of my goal to be significant. And you mentioned it during the talk as well. The language that we speak these days are very powerful. What would happen if I don't have a New Year's resolution but a New Year's habit? And I want to do something else in terms of a habit, and that's what I focus on. And they say it takes about 21 to 28 days to get a habit to become second nature. What if that was my focus, and I don't have a New Year's resolution? Because I don't know about you guys, but it sort of semi has a negative connotation for me, a New Year's resolution, and that's why I'm not interested in it. But what if I had a New Year's habit? and this is something that I want to do for this year, a new habit that I want to start with. Is that not going to make more sense? And I mean, it boils down to my language then.
You know, you're talking about. I think we had the opportunity to in one of the map cafes talk about this idea of a resolution, and the conclusion that I came to after listening to the input was that there's only one resolution to make, and that is to connect with your purpose. Because once you've connected with your purpose, there's no need to make a New Year resolution. It's one resolution. That's the only thing, is to connect with that and to remain committed. So it's almost like um, possibly the closest we could get is to have an increased resolve, and maybe that should be something where we, on a regular basis, we reinforce our resolve. And the way to do that is what you were talking about earlier, which was vision, having that vision board clearly. And I love the idea of changing things, confusing people. I've got a New Year's habit that I'm going to implement, because you might just start a wave of transformation. Heather, what do you think about that?
Yeah, no, definitely, because I don't think people understand when you talk about resolutions. And I'm glad you used the word resolve, because they forget that that's where it all starts. It's I resolve to. With the negative side of it is that it's because we see all the cars parked outside the gym from January to February and March, they get fewer and fewer and so on. And it's because people start something and they never finish. And it's all down to the commitment. And when you talk about commitment, what makes people commit even more strongly? And it's because they have their purpose. They're motivated. And so you could start at the end of your letters and work backwards and see why we need to actually have a resolve every single day.
Yeah, you're touching something that's so, I think, so important, and that is that we need to connect with our true purpose in life, because once you do, it's almost a life-changing experience. And there's no going back. There's no quitting on that. I mean, it's like your very lifeblood. And I think a lot of people, when they set goals or they have these so-called New Year resolutions, they're actually picking something from someone else's list, and they want to become what maybe someone else expects them to become. And there's no real emotional connection. It doesn't inspire them. It doesn't ignite their passion. In fact, what do you think about that word passion, Henny? I don't think I used the word passion tonight. I talked about patience and procrastination. But passion, I mean, that's an important word. How does that influence our journey?
You could have used positive as well there. Yeah, there's a lot of P words. I think you sort of semi-summarize it just now by saying, if I've got a goal and I can have a SMART goal, if I want to use the fancy things, that is just something I think of the world. Your true purpose or your true goal is something that's going to align with your passion. Then it becomes a lifestyle. It's not something that I strive to. It's not like a New Year's resolution or something that I want to try and get to. As soon as my passion is involved in becoming my goal, I become significant. And for that to happen, it means that I am then so focused, it doesn't feel like I'm working anymore. I can't go to bed at night because I still got so much that I want to do. There's just so much that I need to do today. I don't have enough hours in the day because it just sort of overflows. It just comes out of me naturally because I'm not working. I'm just fulfilling my purpose on earth. And I think that's where passion comes in. A goal without a passion is almost pointless, because it's getting a T-shirt. It's getting to the point and saying, been there, done that, got the T-shirt. With passion involved, chasing a goal, I think it ends the day that you're not here anymore. That is a never-ending story, because you're going to just continue growing, being significant all the way until it's your time not to be on earth anymore.
We the three of us or sorry, the two of us, apologies, Heather, the two of us, excluding Heather, are in the same generation. Heather, one day when you catch up to us, you you know what I've noticed is that I have related to people that are older than me, like you guys, you know, for a long. I've read. I had to say that. I had to say that. And just for those viewers, that's not true. Okay. But what is true is I've always related to people that have been older than me, and one of the reasons for that was because I was the first grandchild, and there weren't any other children for a while. So the only people I interacted with were adults, and so even today, I'm usually engaging with people that are 20 years older, and what I've noticed recently is that people in their 70s and beyond, some of them are beginning to panic. It's like there's the sudden feeling like life is coming to an end, and I've got all the stuff that I should have done, and I don't have any time left, and they're in a state of panic or anxiety and all these things. And I was thinking about that a lot, and this is the thought that I began to have, and I'd like to invite you to maybe talk about this a bit, Heather, Henny. Is that if I'm investing my life into something that's going to live beyond my life, then there is no panic anymore, because everything that I'm doing is going to continue. I think when we're working towards material things and superficial things, then there's just not enough time to get it done. But if we're doing something that has a much longer term or generational impact, then perhaps we can relax in knowing that there are other people that will carry the baton forward. Anyway, it's a thought that I was having and just an observation I've made. And so I'm inviting you guys to give me some answers and maybe some guidance.
I think we got to appreciate that it's a different era that we're talking about. People who are of a certain age now were not given the luxury of following their purpose or even acknowledging that they had a purpose. People of a certain era knew that they had to get a job, and they had to get a job that was available. Historically, there were certain jobs in the Rhodesian era that were catered for certain people, and you took those jobs. And so people just weren't allowed to explore, to decide what their purpose was. And now that they have the opportunity, that's what I wanted to do all my life. And they start thinking, I don't have enough time, because we always think that we only need ourselves to do something. I only need me. We forget that we have people around us that can help us fulfill our purpose. But I think what's also important is that there are people listening to this today who think, well, how do I find my purpose? How will I even know what my purpose is? And if you just start with passion, what makes you excited? What makes you wake up every day? And those are things we've got to look at.
Yeah, I think in my case, I sort of had a rude awakening about almost 3 years ago. My wife went to see a doctor because she was having a bad cough that didn't want to go away. And she was diagnosed with cancer, and she had 16 months left, and she wasn't there anymore. And that sort of triggered something in me to say, am I ready to go? Have I left my legacy, and not a legacy in the arrogant way? Have I left something behind? Have I taught enough people what they need to know around being significant, making a difference in other people's lives, helping people find their purpose? Have I left enough of that behind so that if I'm not around one day, that this can continue going forward, because that's what's supposed to happen? So I think that's the crux for me, is to say, my focus is not one of panicking and saying, wow, I've lost 50 years of my life the way I could have made a difference. for me, it's a question of, wow, I'm actually privileged to have built up 50 years of experience, been in very interesting positions that will empower me going forward to help other people to short circuit their learning curve to become focused people, to have a passion that they drive every day. So for me, that's the long and the short for me, is to say I need to get people to live and feel and be excited about living their purpose like I am. And then when it's time for me not to be here, that is good, because the good work will continue.
That's a great perspective.
Well, just in case tonight's my last night, I want to just tell the two of you and everybody who listens to the recording that there is a world out there that is desperately in need for you to help them discover their purpose. And Map for Life is one tool that can help people and put them on that journey of discovery. And I already know there are many people doing that, and I trust that you will continue. And for those younger people, audience listening, that you will also recognize or connect to this thing of purpose. Heather, your experience is the show director. So come on, be the show director tonight. Give us some direction.
A good question is, you spoke about momentum and being
as long as you ask Kenny the question.
So what tips can we give our viewers, our people listening, to keep that momentum going, to stay motivated? Because there are some days when you wake up and you think, oh, not again. How do we maintain momentum?
You are asking Henny, I know that, and he's looking there like he's waiting for me to answer.
I'm happy to answer that. I think I was struggling with that question for 49 years of my life, not knowing what I was supposed to do. I think the simple process for me was adopting Map for Life as a lifestyle that guides me. If I started, well, as soon as I started doing it, and we use the GPS analogy, if I know where I am right now, I put in my destination, the GPS will give me the map, the route that I need to take. I can pick the fastest route, I can pick the cheapest route, avoid toll gates, etc., etc. But if I keep on sitting in my car where I'm right now, the GPS is of no use to me because I will get nowhere. And I think Map for Life made it very simple for me to say there's actually 5 steps, but 4 of them are very practical. The first one is really to say, so where am I right now? And what was key for me is, Heather was mentioning it just now, how do I know what my passion is? I started following the process, and it's quite simple. The where am I right now is, it takes stock of where you are. Then it sort of helps you drill down in your dream all the way to the destination. So you start then drilling down to say, how do I get to my destination? What is it going to look like? What is it that I need? Then step 3 is really is the plan. So what is my plan? How am I going to get there? And Map for Life I'm an engineer background as well. So from an engineering point of view, I like logical structured steps. And Map for Life for me was just that. I follow one step after the other. It keeps on building on top of each other. And when I get to the end, I've got a plan that I just need to follow. So for me to keep momentum, everything is in place. I've got a plan. I've got momentum in the form of habits, of goals, of things that I need to do. So whenever I do something, the question is it adding value to where I'm going? Is it going to form a part of the goal that I'm chasing? If not, why am I doing it? So I think for me, that was the building momentum is really around that.
I want to just before so I'd like to share a little story if I may, Heather. But before I do, I just want to acknowledge Ngwadi Mzamo from East London, who's joining us from my hometown where I was born. It's always nice to have somebody from there, and then of course somebody who visited my home 11 years ago, and his name is Charles Wambua, all the way from Nairobi, Kenya, joining us this evening. And it's just so nice to have long-time mappers, engaging and committed to making a purposeful difference. Heather, you're talking about momentum. I found myself in a place of depression some years back, and when I say depression, I was imagining a future that I didn't want. I imagined that something was going to go wrong. And I began to focus on what could potentially go wrong. And the more I focused on it, the bigger the problem seemed to be. And I was getting, sort of moving towards that problem faster and faster and faster, until one day I suddenly realized, goodness me, you've taken your eye off your vision. When last did you dust off your vision board? You're no longer looking at that. And when I realized that, and I began to focus back on my vision board, that massive big hole that I was digging for myself up in the front just suddenly filled in. It disappeared. It was like it vanished. And so I think this maintaining momentum, it's imperative that we keep our eye fixed on that vision, and that the vision we have is compelling, that it inspires and motivates us from the inside out, that we're not dependent on other people in motivating us. And I think very often in a work situation, you find there's a hierarchy where somebody is having to motivate the troops to get the job done. And that's not going to work for you. If you're going to have somebody else to motivate you and push you and so on, you may be doing the wrong thing. Now, I'm not suggesting for one moment that there aren't going to be times in your life where you need somebody to get you out of bed, and I'm so grateful that Anne has been by my side for these 23 years, because there've been times where I've needed a little bit of encouragement, and sometimes it comes in the form of a leather shoe with a sharp pointy toe, I think, there somewhere, and maybe sometimes we need that. We need that little bit of a push, but also what Anne has been is a great encourager. And, I think this is where in Map for Life, we see the value and importance of having an accountability partner, having mentorship, being part of a group. And this is something that everybody can begin. And I know, Heather, you running a MAP club in Brighton, in south of London. I hope I've got my bearings right. Henny is going to be starting some next week, Wednesday already. He's having his first session to prepare to get his club going. And for those of you who are listening this evening, take that step, start your own group, because that momentum comes in the form of support. Let me stop there. Heather, I can see you've got things to say, questions to ask, places to go, things to do.
No, you were talking about momentum and getting out of the bed in the morning. And then earlier we discussed words and what you say. Florence Scovel-Shun says your words are your wand. So we've got to be very careful about what we say to ourselves.
Just say that again, Heather. Your words are?
Your wand. W-A-N-D.
W-N-D.
W-A-N-D. Wand.
Okay, wand. Okay, got it.
Yeah, because you use your words to create your life. If you keep telling yourself that that's not what you want to do, or that's not how it's going to work, or that you're incapable of doing something, then you will be incapable of doing it and you won't start. But if you've got a vision board, you're constantly focusing on it and you're telling yourself, yes, I can, and you will get there. It's that negative versus positive self-talk sometimes that creates the momentum or doesn't create the momentum. What words can we say to ourselves that we can use to inspire ourselves? What do you think, Jenny?
I think we started and said that the theme for the year is really leadership. And I think for me, the key thing is Gem 1, we spoke about self-leadership. And I think the difference between a leader and a manager is pretty obvious. A manager needs to tell people to do stuff, whereas a leader is doing stuff and people follow him. And I think the best starting point for us would be to become leaders of ourselves. We need to start leading ourselves and not managing ourselves. We don't need people to tell us what to do. We don't need to try and tell ourselves what we need to do. We need to start leading ourselves by and doing the right things. And I'm going to come back to habits, because I really think that's making the biggest difference for me right now is habits. Glen was talking about his vision board. I've scheduled time in the morning for myself, first thing in the day, where I do a few things, read book, but my vision board is there. I look at the picture every morning and I sort of close my eyes and see those things actually happening. And for me, that feels like I'm starting to lead myself. I'm going somewhere, and believe it or not, when you think positive, good things starts to happen. And that's really what's happening for me right now. Things are just falling in place because I'm seeing it happening. And I think that's the key thing. I think we need to focus on leading ourselves and stop managing. Let's lead ourselves. If you can lead yourself, you can lead people.
So
I
you
love
don't.
to, I love to have a pity party. And okay, I'm joking, but I have had those moments where you find yourself in a place that you don't want to be. You know what you need to do to get out of it, but you kind of revel in the idea. And you stay there longer than you should. And I think what you're saying this evening is so important. Let's lead ourselves. Let's take that responsibility. And I think we need to make that decision before that moment comes where you're feeling that way. And so, you know something, as soon as I detect a loss in momentum, as soon as I detect that I'm taking a detour, I must instantly stop at that moment and get back on the path. I think somebody said earlier this week that there's no need for you to go right back to the beginning every time. You know, when you're driving to Cape Town and you take a detour, or you take the wrong turn, you turn around, you get back on the main road, and you continue. You don't go all the way back to the start of your journey. And I think in life, sometimes people want to always go right back to the beginning and begin again. No, you don't have to begin again. Begin from where you're at right now and use the wisdom and the knowledge that you've gained. I'm stopping here. I'm leaving this to you because this is your great moment of leading us.
What about opportunities? So you saying, I appreciate what you're saying when you say lead yourself rather than manage yourself. Okay. So when you're talking about leading yourself, the opportunities as they come, we've got to be able to see them, be aware of them, and then to take them, to seize them, to grab them. What makes us sometimes overlook an opportunity?
That's a good question. I think for me, at this point in time, if my goal, my purpose is so crystal clear that I can actually see what it looks like at the end, on my journey getting there, I sort of semi start seeing what I need to see. I start seeing the opportunities. Take the example. If I want to buy a new car, all of a sudden there's millions of those cars on the road. They were always there, but I've never seen them. So for me, I think if my focus is good enough, if I see the picture clear enough in my mind of where I'm going, I think I'm going to probably miss less and less of the opportunities. I will see the opportunities that will start adding value to me. Um, I might still make mistakes. I might still do something wrong. But once again, we spoke about the language. I can call it a mistake or I can call it a learning experience because I've learned something from it. What can I take from what's happened to me right now, use it to my advantage to take me to where I am actually focused in going? So I think we are going to miss things, but I think we will get better. And that's called experience. As we go along, as we start seeing the end result where I'm aiming for a lot clearer, I think I will see what I'm supposed to see on my journey. I don't think I'm going to miss a lot. I might, but I'm going to become better at not missing.
Yeah, Heather, can I say something about this? I think we're missing an opportunity or overlooking an opportunity. Often, I remember somebody saying once, when opportunity comes, people often miss it because it's dressed in overalls and looks like work. But jokes aside, I think we package opportunity in a particular way, and we become very narrow-minded in the sense of what the opportunity looks like. And I think maybe we should be open to the idea that the opportunity that's going to take you closer to your vision may look very different to what you expect. It may come in the form of a package that you are not familiar with, and perhaps we just need to be a bit open and say, I think especially if you have a sense that there is a greater power beyond yourself, and that maybe he's got a better plan than you have, and that you need to be open to that. And in a sense, some people might say, be open to divine intervention. Often we only see divine intervention when we look back, or we think about catastrophe or things of that nature, or our life was saved or whatever, or the political party that we prefer was voted into power. We think of divine intervention. But something, maybe we just need to be open to the opportunity coming in disguise.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So if anybody's been listening to even this evening, you've heard us talking about habits. You've heard us talking about goals. You've heard us talking about vision boards. You've heard us talking about community. It still isn't too late to get your blueprint. Okay. So a link will probably come up where you can get your blueprint. In the blueprint, there are guides, there are tools to help you, as Henny said, know where you are right now, know where you want to go. There are guides and tools to help you select new habits, maintain them, monitor yourself, and be accountable. There is a place also for you to create vision boards so that you can have that clear sight and focus and zone in on what you need. So we just want to thank you for joining us this evening. Thank you to Glen for his talk. Thank you to Henny for his contribution. And we look forward to working with you going forward.
Amen to that. Thank you, Heather. Good night, everyone.